Detective Comics Annual 2025, Al Ewing writing with John McCrae, Stefano Raphael, and Fico Ozio on art. So yeah, I remember Taylor saying on Blue Sky that he wasn't doing the annual just purely because it kind of came up when he had like, too many commitments, and it was like, someone else can step in and do the annual.
I did not know this till I started reading it, and now I am upset. So
did you not
so
like
I get
that?
for not checking Blue Sky.
Yeah, did you not like the Al Ewing story?
It's not that I didn't like it, but I was expecting a Tom Taylor story, and then I opened it and it wasn't Tom Taylor. And I don't mind Al Ewing, This story not my cup of tea when it comes to Batman, but there's nothing actually wrong with it. It's just not to my taste, But yeah, not knowing it was Tom Taylor before, that's on me. I should have been checking things. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise when I opened it up to read it this morning.
Yeah, so it's told in 3 parts, Act 1, 2, and 3. Each act's got a different artist. I think the opening part I quite liked. I thought it was kind of an interesting idea, which is Batman is lured to a penthouse apartment because the music that's coming from it is a signal that's actually in Morse code that's saying Batman. So he's like, okay, someone's singing my song. And he goes to the house, and there's like a dead body there. The person who owned this apartment, this big fancy rich apartment, is dead with a knife in his back. And he's written in blood on the floor, Batman, do not solve my murder. And it's like, okay, intriguing. And then this first story is all about how he goes through the house and finds out that it's like super fancy. There's a bunch of automated stuff. Like he has to say man cave on to like activate the big TV and the video game system, and the kitchen's got automated things. The library's actually just big screens where the books appear on the walls. It's all super high tech, and Batman comments on how expensive the floating video game controller that just gravitates to your hand must cost. He says it's the same tech that's in the Trickster's boots. So it's like, okay. And it was even a reference to Sherlock Holmes because he brings up Arthur Conan Doyle's Study in Scarlet. So, Al Ewing's playing his influences on his sleeve a little bit. But when he goes to the kitchen again and he realizes the knives have the same thing going on, the knives all start trying to kill him. And it becomes clear that whoever did this didn't come into the apartment. They just used the tech and the appliances, or in the knife in this case, to just like stab the guy in the back. And that was it. But there's like these books there called How to End the Universe, where there's like a bunch of pages ripped out. And that sets him off into Act 2, where he goes to see a doctor. The art changes to a much scratchier style. Which I don't dislike any of the art in this book. The only problem is they're all so different from each other. You get whiplash when you change from one to the other.
I particularly like this middle section's art, I think, the most, because it fits kind of the tone of the story.
It's moody.
Here, where it almost feels like an old Vertigo story.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's
that Batman's happened to be popping into. So...
Yeah, and basically he finds out from this doctor, talks about this guy who wrote this book, and it basically like he gets like sidetracked with like some ghosts basically in a cemetery, which honestly did feel like a bit of a tangent just to put something in the middle of the book, which gets wrapped up and it's kind of whatever. But he gets to the proof of the book, the original copy that had these pages in it. And effectively what it turns out is that the guy who wrote this book basically talked about how you could use math to just completely destroy the universe using certain frequencies or whatever. And he got scared and ripped out all these pages out of all the copies because he realized that when he wrote this book, it was impossible to do. Like the math was so complex that no one could do it. There was no machines that could do it. But, flash forward to present day, he's older. Oh, shit. Computers exist now that could probably do this, so you could probably ruin the entire universe if you wanted to.
And the guy that said "Don't solve my murder," he was a futurist type. He wanted to push technology. He was one of these big thinkers, and so he's thinking that maybe he didn't want that to befall the universe, right? That because of math, it being undone. So this is all just a ploy that it kind of ends with him.
Yeah. And eventually it kind of leads to whoever's doing this, the bad guy who's now kidnapped the doctor. We've changed art again, and they are still pretty good, but again very different. And it's a whole thing. I think for me, it is a book that gets worse as it goes, because I think the concept's so interesting in that first part, and then the art's really cool and the mood's really cool in that second part, and finding out about this math, these equations that could end the world, and that's what this guy was trying to stop anyone from seeing. I think that was an interesting plot direction. And then the last direction, though, where you've just got kind of the maniacal madman who's behind it, like holding someone hostage, is a bit more generic, and I thought that was less intriguing. So
the secret partner of not secret, but the guy that died, Morse, he had a partner, and he was the business side of things because he was too much of a futurist. He couldn't see the business, and now that he has this, he'll be, he can undo the universe and reshape it his own way. And I was just like, I don't know, man, this seems pretty big for a Batman story. Guy trying to unmake the universe to remake it. But okay, Al Ewing.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Batman stumbling into this, and this is why this guy was desperate for Batman not to investigate it, because it's better left buried. Because it turns out that the bad guy wanted Batman to because he couldn't find these missing pages, but Batman's the world's greatest detective. He'll be able to find them, so he'll set up a crime scene so captivating that Batman has to look into it. That was the whole idea. It's a very Sherlock Holmes style story, and I'm okay with all of that. I think that stuff is mostly fun. I just think it gets a little bit generic when we get to the actual bad guy at the end, because he's just kind of whatever. But overall, as an annual, though, I thought it was pretty solid. Like, I mean, I tend to be a little lukewarm in annuals in general, just because I tend to the ones that aren't connected to the ongoing arc, just because they feel like filler. They feel like, oh, it's just to do a story. Now, you could have a great one shot, you can, but I would say 4 times out of 5 they're kind of just whatever, if not bad. And then that 1 time out of 5 they're kind of a great like one shot. I think this is verging more in that 1 out of 5 territory in a good way than it is the other 4.
Yeah, it almost gets there. Like you said, it doesn't quite stick to landing. Everything else is way more interesting in the build-up than the reveal. Yeah. So, because it ends up ending with a time bubble, where Batman ends up giving him just 1 page of the 4, and that ends up creating this, piece of it, and it stops him and it traps him in this essentially time bubble. Which only made me think of, is this the technology that the Legion's going to use for a time sphere later down the line? It's very similar. Yeah, so, but that's all. Batman also perfectly replicating Morse's voice to use the things in the manor or in the mansion. I was like, all right, Ewing, we're going a little bit far here. We're venturing into Bat God era here, but again, it mostly landed.
So sometimes it's hard to predict which bat things will annoy you, because that's such a minor thing that he's able to just like especially since, I mean, admittedly, Ewing could have just written it that it didn't matter what the voice sounded like, it'll just respond to a command regardless of who it is.
Yeah,
but him doing an impression of a guy is not that fancy.
But it's like. But when you're doing that type of thing in a book where we don't know what the guy sounds like, and now you have to take narration boxes for Bruce to just, and I lowered my voice to a certain timbre so it would perfectly match. And I was like, we don't know who this guy is.
Matt, to be fair, it didn't do that. There was one narration box that said, oh, luckily the computer was tricked by my impression. That was it.
I could have sworn.
He didn't describe what he did to his voice to make it sound like him. He just sort of said that he did it. That's fact checking.
He says, I lighten and soften my natural growl, adding a little vocal fry and just a touch of Palo Alto. Man cave on. And yeah, my Cody Morse impression passes the test.
Wait, what?
So yes, he does.
I don't remember
it's on the pool table. It's on the pool table panel.
Okay, well,
at the bottom of that.
My mind erased it. That's all I can say to that.
That's okay. It's because it's not good, and that's fine.
Okay. Well,
again, it edges a little close to the Bat God side of things. Like you said, much simpler thing is it just funds. It's automated. This is like a Ex Machina house. Because that's what I was getting vibes of Ex Machina when he showed up here, and everything's automated, even the knives, and the knives go wonky. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still only 2 boxes of narration. And I don't think the panels would change if you did change the fact that he didn't have to disguise his voice. I still think you'd have the exact same 2 panels of art when he says, turn on. So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, did you like the running joke that when he was in England for the middle part of the story, that everyone kept offering him tea?
Yes, I thought that was funny. Is Al Ewing from England?
I don't know. He might be.
Or is this? So is he like doing a self-own, or is he poking fun? Let's see.
I have no idea. Google the man.
I don't know anything about Al Ewing as the man. I just know I like his Hulk run.
His Hulk run's good, yes.
But no. Again, from the stuff in Vertigo that I've read, the sorcerer type guy that he's fighting, and the fact that the person that usually fights him is stuck on the train or something. What was it?
Yeah. Al Ewing is British, by the way.
Okay, so there we go. So it was a bit of a him taking the piss out a little bit.
I don't think he's taking the piss. I think he, like a lot of British people, are very oddly proud of liking tea. I don't really care about it, but some people really love to talk about how much they love tea.
But yeah, just really, the guy that normally fights Mr. Mystic, who's the villain from the middle part, is stuck on the train from London. So that's why Batman gets in. I thought that was funny as well. Just these little, character pieces, and just Batman with his cowl and the tendrils up against that big, brick gate. Just the setting was very funny. But yeah, again, it was fine. When I say that I was upset, it was just there are little annoying things here and there, but it wasn't a bad read.
Yeah, I think as far as angles go, I think it was solid enough.
Yeah.
But,
did you read the second story?
I did not, because I had a lot of books to read, so I just said, no, I'm not going to.
No, that's fine. So I enjoyed this a lot more than the last story, because this focuses on a student at Gotham Public Middle School 96 named David Rosales, he's in 7th grade, and he's the president and founding member of the Gotham Public Middle School Junior Batman Detective Club. And kids at the school are having fear gas-like symptoms. They're having seizures and hallucinations of stuff that's not there. So he stays after school and does some digging and ends up getting locked into a closet because he thinks that, or he had read that before the school was built, it was used as a lab and hideout for the Scarecrow. So there must be some residual fear toxin stuff going on. And he ends up getting locked in one of the custodial closets. And Batman ends up finding him there because there's been enough events of these kids getting sick that it's hit Batman's radar that he has to investigate. So these two end up teaming up, and they come to find out that it is all just residual fear toxin kind of in the ground, and it's making its way through the vent system. But it ends up being Batman coaching this kid up and realizing that, this kid's kind of awkward. He's not like the other kids, and that him helping Batman has made his entire week. So it was this nice little lighthearted story of Bruce, encouraging this kid to keep it up, and eventually, he tells him, I was kind of like you when I was your age, and I was very awkward, but as you get older, your friends will start accepting that side of you. And I just kind of laughed because, of course, the rest of the Justice League thinks that Bruce is a bit awkward and stilted,
They and he ends up
giving yeah. Well, they do accept him. They're still his friend, but he's like, those part of you will make your personality, and they'll accept you if they're your real friends. And he ends up giving him a ride home in the Batmobile. So just a fun little light story of him investigating a fear toxin at a school. That if they did like a young adult Batman story like this, as a backup, I would very much enjoy it. Like having FIALKOV do these kind of more lighthearted stories with Batman, I think always helps. But the art's pretty good as well. Let me see who the artist was.
Well, the writer, just because you mentioned the surname there, but you didn't say who it was. Joshua Hale FIALKOV is the writer.
FIALKOV. And then Mike Norton does the art. The art's really, really strong. It's a bit cartoony in times. You get a lot of fun expressions out of Bruce as he's going through, one of the kids thinks like this new teacher, or the kid thinks that one of the new teachers might be behind this stuff because he's been super shifty. So they investigate the wardrobe, come to find out that the new teacher is hoarding like leftover food to make lunches for kids that are needy that can't afford lunches. So that's why he's been shifty, because he doesn't want to get into trouble. And just the expression on Bruce's face when he opens up the bag and there's like this pre-made sandwich. It's quite funny. But yeah, very, very enjoyable. If you get a chance, if you have time to read it, I definitely recommend it.
All right, what are you giving Detective Comics Annual?
Oof, as a whole, I'll give it a 6.5.
Yeah, I think that sounds. Maybe a 7. I think it's like, I actually think it starts off like higher than that and just kind of dips by the end of the main story. But I think 6.5 is the diplomatic score, so I will agree with it.